and welcome to Tuesday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic on an absolutely filthy day here in the UK. It is miserable outside, but I'm going to cheer myself up by attempting a puzzle by Math Pesto. And this is almost a sort of miracle setup. The puzzle's called Atoll. And I've read the rules before I turned the webcam on. And it really is astonishing that this has a unique solution. And the weird thing about this puzzle is it has a perfect rating, 100% on Logic Masters Germany, a hard thing to achieve, but an especially hard thing to achieve if you don't max out the difficulty. And this just has 3 stars out of 5 for difficulty, so it ought to be quite approachable. So Math Pesto may have hit upon the holy grail here. Well, we'll see in a moment or two. I'll read you those rules in just a second. What do I need to tell you about first? Well, I'm going to start with, what am I going to start with? I'll start with David Himmelstrup's birthday today. David, you've turned 36, I think, and I know this because your wife Eve sent us this lovely photo of the 3 of you, because I think this is your dog Emma. A ferociously intelligent-looking dog, if I may say so. Anyway, David, I hope you have a brilliant birthday today. I think you're in Denmark now, but you started watching the channel when you were living in Singapore, so you've been globe-trotting. We've just been trotting, but yeah. I hope it's a day filled with chocolate cake. And then also, Jeff, it's your birthday today, and I know this because your wife Ying wrote to us, and Jeff watches religiously every day, which I'm delighted to hear about. And that reminds me, I have a quick request. If you are a regular viewer and you enjoy the channel and you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. I can tell you as a creator, it definitely improves our happiness index if we see our numbers on the increase. So if you want to make a nerd happy, please consider subscribing if you're not subscribed already. Especially as things like yesterday, the video yesterday where I solved this magnificent puzzle by Jesper Josephson, Numbered Regions, an incredible puzzle. But YouTube, for some reason, is reporting the views for that video way down, and I think this is a problem a load of creators had yesterday. For some reason, I think it's just that YouTube's broken, and it stopped counting views halfway through the evening, and it's only restarted again now. So I think it seems like the video has been watched a lot. It's just the views haven't been recorded. But I can tell you it makes me very, very sad when I think a puzzle like that hasn't been seen by the audience it should be seen by. Anyway, that's by the by. What else do I have to tell you about? Today is the last day to enter the Phistomefel hunt competition. So if you are still working on Ancient Wall, and why wouldn't you be? It's one of the hardest puzzles you'll ever try in your lives, but also one of the best. Phistomefel's masterpiece creation. Then, well, you've got until the end of the day if you want to get a shout out on the channel and send in your answer. These people have already sent their answers in and got them right, so congratulations to Jake, who's only 11 years old, and Steve Paltiel, very, very well solved indeed, William Poltzin, Eric Propfy, The Indolent Fool, Barry Spatz, Andrew Montileone, Preston Thompson, Harrison Stein, Morgan Karpusky, Derek Patterson, Yannick Tremblay, Matthew Buckley, Shay Ganarelli, Lucy Stewart and Klaus Kolb. All of you sent in the correct entries. Very, very well done indeed. And you've still got 10 days left to enter the J Dyer hunt, which is also available on our Patreon page right now. Now we can put it off no longer. Let's attack Atoll by Math Pesto, and I will read you the rules. They are as follows. Normal Sudoku rules apply. Draw a loop which never intersects with itself through the centres of some cells. The loop moves from cell to cell orthogonally. Now hang on, let me turn on my loop drawing skills. If you don't have the ability in your software to do this sort of line drawing, the reason will be that you haven't clicked the cog icon on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side of your screens, and enabled the pen tool. If you enable the pen tool, then you should find that you have the ability to start drawing pen-like marks in your grid. So what does this mean? We've got to make a loop It's not a loop that can intersect itself, so that sort of thing would not be an allowable loop, because you can see in that cell the loop has crossed itself. And in moving from cell to cell, what we cannot do is create loops like that, because you can see from here to here we have moved diagonally, not orthogonally. Orthogonally, two cells are orthogonally connected if they share a long edge, so we must move sort of in this sort of way from cell to cell in order to create our loop. Every cell in the grid is one of three types: fully inside the loop, fully outside the loop, or part of the loop. A 2x2 area cannot be entirely one cell type. A green circle is inside the loop. Right, so these two green circles are inside the loop. A blue circle is outside the loop, so that's outside the loop. And a yellow circle is part of the loop. A digit placed in a circle is the number of cells of its own type that it sees horizontally or vertically, including itself. Other cell types obstruct vision. So let's just think and see if we can understand what this 7 means. It means that before it sees, so to say that the loop did that and then stopped, then this cell and this cell would clearly not be yellow, I think. Actually, maybe that's not true. Well, anyway, let's imagine that's a green cell and that's a blue cell. Then, and well, who knows what this is? Let's make these two blue as well. It's quite complicated, this. And I've got the count wrong. I've just realised haven't done it far enough. Oh no. Oh no, I've had a shank. Right, hang on. Let's say we do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I've still got it wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, goodness me. Sorry. I really can't count today. This does not bode well for my ability to solve the puzzle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think we're saying something like this. Because this cell, all of these cells, I think would be yellow, wouldn't they? Because they are on the loop. And then we see a green cell here, a blue cell here, a blue cell here, and a blue cell here. So this isn't seeing more yellowness here or here. So that is a possible way that this 7 clue could work, I think. And then cells inside the loop form one orthogonally connected area. Okay, so that's telling us that the green cells, wherever they all live in the grid, they form, that's why it's called Atoll. They form an island, is basically what that's telling us. We've got to connect these up orthogonally somehow. Cells outside the loop are orthogonally connected to the edge of the grid. Okay, well that one is already connected to the edge of the grid. And adjacent non-loop cells contain digits that differ by 5 or more. This is a mad constraint. So that is telling us, well, that's weird as well, because that's telling us that in connecting up my green cells, say I connected my green cells up like this, and this was the island in the grid, then this would be effectively be viewed like a German whispers line. So as we moved from cell to cell along here, let's say this cell was a 3, this cell would have to be at least 5 different from 3. So it would have to be 8 or 9. And then this would have to be at least 5 different from 9. So it could actually be 4, that could be 9 again. And then we could go 2, and then we could go 7, etc., etc. So it could do something like that. But that rule, if I read the rules correctly, also applies to all the blue squares, because the blue squares are obviously non-loop cells as well. So it's quite a complicated rule set, which is, I guess, how Math Pesto has managed to achieve this sparse-looking grid. Anyway, it's a 100% rated puzzle, so do have a go. The way to play is to click the link under the video as usual. Now, I get to play. Let's get cracking. Now, let's get cracking. I know that's on the loop, but I haven't got a clue how the loop enters this cell. Whoops. So I know it sees quite a lot of yellow cells, though. It sees 7. This 2 sees just... Right, so only one cell here. Oh, I have seen something. I've just seen something here, so I might mention that. Let me just think about this more broadly, though. I don't know the numbers in these cells. And the other thing is the 5 here. I have a feeling that I've got to think about the 5 from a German whisper's perspective, because this rule about adjacent non-loop cells contain digits that differ by 5 or more is just shouting at me, because 5 is the most restricted digit, if you think about that rule set, because 5 can never be... yeah, okay, 5 in this puzzle is always on the loop. That's what that's telling us. That's fascinating. Okay, that's fascinating. So this cell is yellow because were it to be green or blue... Oh no, hang on. Could it be a single... It couldn't be a single green. Hang on, I'm now gainsaying myself. This cell is on the perimeter of the grid, so it's definitely not inside the loop. Because the loop could run down here, but it cannot run outside the grid up here. But if that was a blue cell, and it was the only blue cell, it is connected to the edge of the grid. So what I'm thinking about is, could the loop do that? Maybe. Okay, so my thought there is totally and utterly wrong. I'm sorry. What I was playing on or riffing on was the idea that if you had 2 blue cells together or 2 green cells together with a 5, that could never work, because this digit would need to be at least 5 away from 5, and that's not going to give a valid Sudoku digit. If you go downwards, you get to 0. If you go upwards, you get to 10. So this doesn't work. But what I'd ignored or overlooked was, what about the possibility of this just being a solitary blue digit? And that could work. So I was about to say, okay, we could say with certainty that every 5 in the grid is on the loop. But I can't say that. Because of this sort of lacuna in that logic where the perimeter is concerned. I mean, there must be a 5 in the middle box, and that 5 could not be green, because if it was, it would have to connect to other green cells, and it couldn't, because we can't make 5 appear next to anything with this German whisper's constraint. So I think the 5 in the middle box is on the loop, but I don't know where it goes. I know it goes in one of those 6 cells. I think I'm going to have to come back to my first thought, actually. Green is... Oh, no, I'm going to... Right, no, I'm not. I'm going to change my tack again. Green is inside the loop. So if that's inside the loop, how do we make this inside the loop? Well, the loop must run down there, and the same must be true on the left-hand side. So that's interesting. Now, I suppose I then yellowify these to make them consistent with this one. Actually, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to highlight all of these cells completely rather than just in the circles. For some reason, that feels more natural to me. Now, I've still got nothing. I've still got... I'm going to come right back to the start. Okay. So this blue cell is telling us that exactly one of those 3 cells is blue, because this only is allowed to see 2 blue cells. Well, yeah, this is right. I was just thinking about that. How could this be blue is my question. I was going to start with that question. If this is blue, we know for sure now that this cell must be yellow, because this is defining the cells that are outside the loop. So if we think about the topology of this, we're going to have cells that are outside the loop, and then we're going to have cells that are loop, and then we're going to have green cells that are inside the loop. That's how it's going to work. So if this is the blue cell, then this cell must be yellow. It can't be green, because if it's green, I wanted to make it green. If it's green, that implies the loop is running down there to distinguish an outside the loop cell from an inside the loop cell. Well, that's not allowed. The loop, we're told, moves from the center of cells to the centers of cells. So if this is yellow, it's a corner. And if it's a corner, how does the loop move in and out of the corner? Well, it would have to do this sort of thing, and now I've got 3 cells the same color, which is not going to work, is it? So that is definitely not blue, which means it must be yellow, because it cannot be anything else. It can't be green, because again the loop would then run along an edge rather than through a center of a cell. Now, I think it must be the same there, mustn't it? If that's blue, that must be yellow, and that's a corner, and I'm going to make a 2 by 2 of yellowness again. So in fact, we can say with certainty that that is blue, and we can say with certainty that this is now yellow. This is now yellow. Now, okay, I can't say that that's yellow. That's weird. I wanted to say that was yellow, but I don't think it necessarily needs to be. If that was blue, this 2 clue is still only seeing 2, isn't it? Because it's penned in on these 2 sides and it's penned in here. But it can extend up here, so I can't say the colour of this, but more importantly, I've now proved this is a yellow corner. So if that's a corner of the loop must do that, the loop must do this. We get loads more yellows as a result of this. This is the sort of thing I like. Now, what about those 2 cells? What is the colour of those 2 cells? And the answer is not yellow. And once the answer is not yellow, because in either position that would give us a 2 by 2, we know that these cells cannot be, they must be inside the loop, because this is the loop here running along the border, so that must be green, that must be green. These greens have to connect to their friends, which is going to be interesting. The loop's now running along here, look. Oh, yeah, right, okay. Let me take my own advice. This green cell here, maybe I should slightly darken the greens actually, just because I'm struggling to distinguish the yellow from the green. I'm going to change the green to the darker, the more radiant green. This green has to connect to its friends orthogonally. We're told that in the instructions, so that must be green, which means that must be yellow to allow our loop to continue. Now, I think probably I need to think about this cell, do I? Oh, wow, okay. Well, I do need to think about that. I'm just going to take the easy win, though. I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit. That's definitely yellow. Now, oh, I see. Right, okay. I've just found out something about this puzzle I had not appreciated at all. Let me show you what I've just realised. I realised it here, but I think it applies quite nicely here as well. What happens if the loop goes like that? The answer is the puzzle's broken. If you can't see why, it's worth pausing the video actually. This is a sort of Agad Mator type moment. Why cannot the loop extend like this? And the reason is that if I do that, this cell becomes a corner of the loop. So I'd have to do that, and that's going to make those 4 cells all yellow. which is against the rules. Now, the reason that, so I saw it here as well. I was thinking about how this 7 clue worked. I could see that those cells there do not add up to 7. So I could see the loop is going to have to, I was going to have to make some yellow cells up here. And then I was thinking about, well, do I know whether the loop continues that way or goes that way? Well, in fact, what I think we're now learning is quite profound. What we're learning is whenever we get 2 yellow cells together, orthogonally connected, the loop must move from one to the other. Because if it doesn't move directly from one to the other, and say it goes up here, you're going to create a corner in the other cell, which is going to force a 2 by 2. So I think we have to turn. The loop has to turn here. And here, because this 7 clue, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's got to continue up here at least 2 cells on that basis. But the moment that we put this cell in as yellow, we know that the loop can't do that, because then this would be a corner, and that would create a 2 by 2 here. 1, 2, 3, 4. All of those would be yellow, and that's not going to work. So I think the loop extends upwards by exactly this. Ooh. Okay. All right. Maybe I was too general in my idea about 2 orthogonally connected yellow cells. You have to keep going, because I'm just looking at that and I'm realizing that the loop might be able to do something. Oh no, the loop couldn't do that anyway, because this green still has to get out. So that green getting out to connect to this green or this green and this or this green means that that's become yellow, which means that we've got a complete loop segment here. Well, that cell now has to be green because it's inside the loop, and well, we can't make the loop go in there because it could never get out, so that must be green. So now we've got to start thinking about avoiding 2 by 2s of greenliness on this side. And now, can I say, well, now I can say that this must extend up, because if it turns, that is going to be a corner, and that's going to create 2 by 2-age. So we do go up again. Yes, this now cannot be yellow, can it? Because if that's yellow, that's a corner, and that creates a 2 by 2. So that's got to be blue. By the same token, this cell, it's 2 options, a yellowness or blueness. If it's yellow, it's a corner, and that's going to create another 2 by 2 here. So this is a corner, so we've got to do that. Now that's interesting for this cell, which now cannot be yellow or it'll create a 2 by 2. It's inside the loop, isn't it, that cell? And we know that because it must be the opposite to this cell, which is outside the loop. So that must be green. This is just clever, isn't it? Now, can you have a checkerboard in this puzzle? Because if you can't have a checkerboard, that's green. So I'm looking at that 2 by 2 and I'm wondering, if that is yellow, it clearly can't be blue. Because if it's blue, again, the loop is going down this edge. So it's either green or yellow. If it's yellow, I've got to connect these greens together using some orthogonal path, because that's what the rules say, and that's going to strand the loop. So however I connect the greens together in the grid, whatever circuitous path I take, you can see I'm going to have an inner part bounded by green of loop. Well, that cannot work. That's going to imply there's a loop inside. There's going to be 2 loops in the puzzle, one inside the other loop, and that doesn't work. So that cell does have to be green. Okay, so in a minute we're going to have to start thinking about the German whispers implications of all of this. This is just brilliant. This is just brilliant. Good grief. I do think it's quite hard though, actually. You've got to keep track of a lot of things here. So, right, now this 7 is forced. I've only seen 4. 5, 6, 7. Oh, good grief. Oh, wow. That green's got to get out. This loop has to get out now, so that's going to have to come around the top of the grid. This green has to connect to its friends, so it's got to come through here. Oh, I thought I'd broken the puzzle, but I haven't, because remember the 5. Oh, I was worried that that 5 was going to be blue, and therefore a single solitary blue might have been possible, but we have actually shown now that this is on the loop, which is not surprising. Well, that must be a corner of the loop, so that must be yellow. Therefore, this cell must be... Wow, that's a blue cell, because it's got to be the opposite to the loop. The loop is running there. It can't go into this cell, or there'd be a 2 by 2. And this cell can't be green, or you'd have green on both sides of the loop, which is clearly a paradox. So we've got to make this blue. If this is a corner, the loop will turn, and that'll make a 2 by 2. So the loop does close here. And right, and now we should think about how that blue extends to the edge of the grid, because we're told in the instructions that every blue cell is orthogonally connected to the edge. Well, here's my question for you. What happens if the blue touches the edge here or up here? Can you see? It's not going to work. If we connect this blue to the edge this way, I was going to say, well, I mean, you can see I have stranded the loop. This loop end has no ability to connect with another side of loop, so it strands the loop. We can't strand the loop. It's going to be the same if we go up here, isn't it? The way to see this is to see that this is going to force this loop to close, and these loop ends are going to have to form a new different loop. There's only one loop, so we've got to go down there. This is another. So this and this we're going to have to think about German whispers implications for at some stage. We've still got to get this green out. This green is it's interesting as well. So when I was imagining the island, the atoll that I was going to be building, I was thinking it was going to be very much. It was just a silly thought. I thought it was going to look like an island, but of course that's going to give rise to 2 by 2 problems. As I think about it now, this atoll is going to be very stripy, I suspect. Now, okay, so the loop has to continue at the top of the grid. I can see that. Right, now, so the 7 clue is done, the 2 clue is done. This one, do we know what number that is? Yes, it's counting how many of its own type it sees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that is a 7. It doesn't see this one because it's sort of round the corner from it. So that's really important, isn't it? Because now we can use the sort of oscillating polarity principle, which applies to German whispers lines. So because you can never put 5 on a German whisper line, for the reasons that we talked about earlier, every digit on a German whispers line can be thought of as having one of 2 properties. It's either lower than 5 or it's higher than 5. And as you go along the line, you must oscillate. So this being a 7, those 2 digits must both be the other side of 5 to 7, because they must be lower. Once we're going to have to be taking 5 away. If we add 5 to this digit, we get 12, which is not a valid Sudoku digit. So both of these have to be the low side of 5, and neither of them can be 4 or 3 because that's too close. So this must be a 1-2 pair. And then this cell, whatever this is, 1 or 2, it has to be 5 different from 1 or 2. So it must be on the top side of 5 again. So that has to be 6, 7, 8 or 9. Well, it can't be 6. Because then this cell would have to be a 1 and this cell would have to be a 1. So in fact, that cell's got to be an 8 or a 9. This cell's got to be a 3 or a 4, because then this has to be deducting again. And it can't be a 4, because then both of those cells will be a 9. So that's a 3, that's an 8 or a 9, and that therefore must be a 4. And that being a 4, the only digit that accompanies 4 on a whispers line is a 9. So that gets us 9, 8. We don't know about the 1 and the 2 yet. We do know that this is a high digit by oscillating polarity. And it can't be 6 again, because that's going to cause double 1s in row 2. So that square is 8 or 9, which means this square is 1, 2, 3, or not 4, because that would cause double 9 again. This square's got to be, that one could be 4 if this was 9. Although, I don't think that's true. Let me explain why I don't think this can be 4. If it's 4, it could be 4 if the green line stopped here. But we know that the green line orthogonally connects to the rest of the greens, which means either this cell or this cell must be a continuation of the green line, or both perhaps. And therefore both of those, or one of those, would have to be a 9, and that would see the 9 we'd have to put there. That cell sees it in the same row, that's in the same box, so that cannot be a 4. This is a 1, so we've now got a 1, 2, 3 triple in row 2. That square's got to be 7, 8 or 9. It can't be 6, or this would be double 1 again. And right, I've thought of one other thing I could do here. Oh, but I could do something simpler. I've got 2 thoughts now. My simple thought is about the fact I know the parity or the polarity of this blue string of digits. My complicated thought is that I know the bishop's move properties of green now. What do I mean by the bishop's move properties? Well, because we're moving orthogonally, every cell on the same bishop's colour as this digit on the green blob that we're going to put into this grid must have the same polarity as this. Because if you think about this cell, for example, say this was green, well, to get to this cell from here, we'd either go to this cell then here, or to this cell then here. And whichever way we did that, this would have the same polarity as this. It would be lower than 5. This on this would be higher than 5. They'd have the same polarity as this one. So what we can say instantly is that that is a low number, because it's on the same bishop's colour as this cell. Now we can do that. Look, that cell's got to be the same polarity as this. Again, I'm just moving the way a bishop would to get to this cell, and I can see that this and this are on the same bishop's colour. So those two have got to be high digits. That one's not 9. That can be 4. Oh, no, it can't be 4, because that's going to put 9 here. So this is 1, 2, or 3. Okay, that might not have done very much. That's not 7 by the power of a given digit. Right, so let's do oscillating polarity on blue then, because my idea about bishop's colours didn't do anything. That cell, and that cell all have to be low. That one can't be 4, that one can't be 4, or you put double 9 around the digit. So, that is 4, look, because there's a 1, 2, 3 triple now that we've suddenly revealed in this column. This is brilliant. This is quite brilliant. So 4 must be next to 9. That's no longer a 4 by Sudoku. This cannot be blue now. Yeah, that's important. That cell cannot be blue, because if it was blue, it would be a 9, and that would clash here. Therefore, it must be yellow. And that does work in terms of my idea about us having to go directly to 2 orthogonal yellow cells, because if I do continue there, this is a corner of yellow, and that's going to create a 2 by 2 again. So I do have to turn down there, which must mean that this cell is not a corner in yellow, because that's going to again create a 2 by 2 here. So that cell must be green, which means we know its polarity. So that's 6, 7, 8, or 9. Here, interestingly, that can be a 6, can't it? Because if that was a 6 and it continued there, those two cells would both be 1, but they wouldn't see each other by the medium of Sudoku, so that would potentially be allowable. Okay. I'm deeply suspicious that this can't close here, that this isn't all loop. Because if this is all loop, aren't I going to get an enormous blue, oh sorry, an enormous green blob here that's going to inevitably involve a 2 by 2? That's what that feels like to me anyway. Okay, let me stare at this for a second or two. That can't be a 2, it sees a 2 in its box. That can't be a 3, it sees a 3 here. If that was a 3, what would those two digits be? They would have to be an 8 and a 9, because we need digits that are at least 5 away from 3, and the only 2 available would be 8 and 9, and that would clash here. So that is 1, that's 2, that's 3. This is surrounded by 8, 9 at the top, which gives us, well, does that give us anything? No, it gives us absolutely diddly squat. Okay, so this column therefore needs 6, 7s and 8s. Well, maybe we can get rid of a 6, can't go there because it would need a 1 on both sides of it. 6 can't go there, it would need a 1 on both sides of it. So that becomes 6. This is a 7, 8 pair. This is big. That becomes 6 by Sudoku now. So that's a 1, which puts no pressure on this digit, but it does at least give us a 1 here. And by Sudoku, that's almost getting us a 1 in box 9. This cell is not 6 anymore, look, so we don't have the double 1 possibility. We've got an 8, 9 pair here now. 6 is in one of those cells. If that was not yellow, it would be blue, because it couldn't be green. And therefore it would be a low digit, which would have to be a 1 or a 3. That actually looks possible, doesn't it? Okie dokie. Good grief. Okay, what do I do now? Oh, maybe I think about 5s. My idea with 5s. Can I say anything intelligent about 5s? 5s are in one of 3 places in box 3. The answer seems to be no. I can't say anything intelligent about them. Okay, so what is it then? Is it Sudoku? I've got effectively 5 digits nailed down in row 2. I need 4s, 5s, 6s and 7s. So that can only be 4, 5 or 6. And this, oh yeah, no, that's right. 4, 5, 6 or 7 over here. Which is, I don't think, it must be, no, it must be something to do with connectivity then. So, how do we think about this? Right, here is a short and easy thought. Does the loop do that? And the answer to that must be no, mustn't it? Because if the loop crosses this boundary, I've now got 3 loop ends in box 1. And that's never going to work. There's always going to be a stranded loop end. You don't want to strand your loop ends. So that is not a possible junction for the loop. Now, what, if anything, does that tell us? Well, I'm going to claim that now this cell cannot be loop. Because if that was loop, it would be a corner of the loop. And I need this not to be yellow. So the only thing this could be would be blue, because it's on the other side of the loop to green, but it would mean all 4 of those cells have to be blue, and that's going to create a 2 by 2 of blue. So in fact, we can therefore say that if that's not able to be yellow, and it's not, it cannot be blue, because that would imply that the loop is running down this edge. So it must be green, and now this cell must be yellow to avoid a 2 by 2 of green. Good grief, this is getting quite interesting, isn't it? So that gives me another yellow cell here, which means that cell has to be blue to avoid a 2 by 2 of yellow. That blue is already on the edge. That cell cannot now be loop because it's right in the corner, so that's got to be blue. So we've got a little German whisper constraint here. And we don't know, so well, it looks to me like I've got two options to how to close the loop up here. And I don't have German whispers polarity to play with in this domino. So, but I do know that cell has to be low now. That's got to be 1, 2, 3 or 4. It can't be 1. If it was 4, that would be 9. And if it was 4, this would have to be 9 as well. But that might, if this was green, that might be possible. I don't know. Right, okay, well that was exciting for a moment, but it hasn't done everything over here by any manner or means, has it? It's going to be something like noting that, you know, if for example, imagine that was a 1, then we could have seen this couldn't be green, which would force it to be yellow and probably mean the loop has to turn. It's going to be something like that, but I've got to spot where the magic happens there. Okay, how am I going to do that? Where is the easy win? So this cell is yellow or blue. And if it's yellow, we definitely have to go directly through there. So these cells would all have to be green. Because otherwise, if we got loop ends in here, we'd have a 2 by 2 of yellow. So they would all be green. That's going to make that yellow, which doesn't work. Oh, maybe that's a simple thing. Yes, maybe that's the simple way of thinking about it. What colour is this digit? And the answer is not green. Because if that's green, you can see this cell needs to be some colour to avoid a 2 by 2 of green. It would have to be yellow. And that would imply the loop goes in there and never comes out. So in fact, that cell is yellow. And I think we can now use my orthogonal trick. Because if the loop doesn't turn into that cell and continues downwards, then this is a corner of the loop. And that creates the 2 by 2 again. So the loop does turn. Now this cell definitely cannot be loop because the loop would go like that, and that creates another 2 by 2. This is it's just such a clever idea, this. So that has to be a different colour to yellow. It can't be green, so it must be blue, which means there's another polarity question for this cell, which is now 1, 3 or 4. It's not 4 because of this 4, so it's 1 or 3. The loop turns here. That becomes yellow. Let's make it turn. So now if the loop continues again to this, if the blue continues again, that has to be a 7. That's the only high digit it could be. Which, do I think that's likely or not? I'm not sure. Yeah, I haven't got a very good feel for whether this blue is going to continue to this cell or not. I think it probably is, because then I can see that the loop could do something like that, which would be rather nice. The greens could connect down this column, and then the yellows could connect around there, and everything looks to me like it might work quite smoothly. If this closes directly, then this cell has to be green. These would all of this would be green. Oh no, actually maybe that works as well. Then the yellow could just do that, and that could be a string of blue on the left hand side. So I'm not sure I know. I'm not sure I know what's quite happening here. Okay. Okay. Right, so we're going to have to think about something else, aren't we? What is that something else going to be? Are there any weak squares now? When by weak squares, I mean squares that are seeing either all the low digits or all the high digits. And therefore we could rule them out of being whisper squares if they were on the right bishop's colour. I have no idea about that, actually. I am looking. I'm trying to scan. That cell's nearly quite restricted, but that could still be a 4. If it's a 4... No, hang on, that couldn't be a... No, I'm talking total nonsense. It is true. It could be a 4, but it wouldn't be low. If it was green, it would be high. So that wouldn't be on the right bishop's colour to be a restriction. Or maybe it's just basic Sudoku. 4 is locked into one of 2 places in box 8, look. Yeah, I've really not thought very much about just basic Sudoku. So maybe that's where I need to turn my attention. What bishop's colour is that cell? The thing is, we don't know, do we? Because the greens we can't use the green parity to determine the blue parity. If that was a whispers digit, if that was blue, 4, 9, this would be a 1, 2, or a 3. That looks possible. Or if this is high, 6 or 7, that could be a 1 or a 2. It doesn't work. Okay, so that's not telling me what this is. Bobbins. So I think it is going to be colouring. I think I'm going to have to deduce something extra about the colours here. I just wish I knew what that was. How do we do this? I think maybe we've got to think about it from a sort of... If all of those squares were green, is that really possible? If this is green, that becomes yellow. To avoid a 2 by 2, that becomes blue. So that causes a lot of things if that's green. It causes this, I think, to have to close. Those all become green. That becomes yellow. This would be a low digit on the whisper, which would be a 2, 3, or 4. Couldn't be a 4 in that instance, so it would have to be a 2 or 3, which looks possible. So that seems to work. Seems to work. What is it that I'm missing? Wow, I don't know. Sudoku? There's a 7 up here. It's always likely to be Sudoku. There's a 7 over there. None of this feels... it's not. They're not blockbuster deductions, are they? They're mild deductions that are nowhere near enough to sort of tell me how the puzzle's going to finish. Can we do... What could it be? Come on, Simon, use your brain. Come on, brain. Engage yourself, brain. Tell me how the puzzle finishes. Have I used all of my whispers logic in terms of, it's possible, for example, I've missed a connection. I think that's got all the options. I think that's okay. This being 8, 9, see, it means there's little pressure on these two. Right, okay. I think, yeah, we're going to have to... Oh, this one. What I haven't thought about is that that's in a circle. That'll be it. Right. Okay. Right, okay, that's important, isn't it? How could this be a 1? If it's a 1, it's saying it's surrounded on all sides by different colours, and therefore it could never connect to its friends. There's a simple deduction. Oh dear. So that's become 2 or 3 now, which that's probably not enough. But in one direction at least it needs to extend itself. So if that was green now, well, actually, or maybe I need to decide whether I think it's a 2 or a 3. It can only be 2 or 3, can't it? So, and we can't have both of those being green, because that's going to create a 2 by 2. So and we know that one of these is green, because we need to connect the greens together. So that's going to use up one of, well, it's going to increase the value of this to 2 from its current value of 1, putting one of those as green. And that's all I could do. So the only other way it could extend would be down to there. It cannot take both of those. So the question is, does it take that digit, which would have to be a 6 or a 7? So the only way this actually works, interesting. So if this is green, this digit, which couldn't be 8 or 9, couldn't be 6 because it wouldn't be 5 away from 2 or 3. So the only way this... Oh, I see. That's beautiful. That's so clever. Okay, Math Pesto, that's just sick. It's so clever. All right, I was being very... Well, I was ignoring that. I'd forgotten the circles were important. Okay, that's very dumb of me. But the moment we start to consider the nature of this circle, its beauty becomes apparent. And it really is clever, this. So, let's go through this again. I know one of these is green to connect my greens up. That gets me to a count of 2 here. So the only way of extending this is to have a green here. But if I do extend this and have a green here, what number is this now? Well, that's a 3, which means this has to be an 8 or a 9, which it cannot be. Isn't that gorgeous? That is it's so clever. So this must be yellow, it can't be blue, or the loop would go along there, which means this must be a 2, that must be a 1, that must be a 2, that must be a 1. I don't know if that's doing any complete magic. I'm sure it's doing something. The loop now, if it continued down there, that would be a corner. So we know that this loop does turn, which means this cell here can't be loop, because that would create another 2 by 2 problem. So suddenly we get a blue digit emerging from the fog here. I think that was the last Math Pesto puzzle I did on the channel, actually. A puzzle I called the best fog of war puzzle of all time, because it was absolutely stunning. Right, so now the interesting thing I'm seeing is actually I don't think this can be blue. Because if that was blue, this loop has to go down to here. And this loop has to come to here. So all of these cells would be yellow. But there's no way of avoiding a 2 by 2, because this loop either has to join up here, which means this extends and creates 2 loops, which is not going to work, or it turns down here, which creates a 2 by 2 of yellow there. Let me show you that slowly. If this is blue, the only way that these can come out is to make all of those yellow. So this has to do this, this has to do this. Now this cell now cannot be yellow, which means there are 3 loop ends here. I can only connect 2 of those together, so one will be stranded. And that's not going to be right, is it? So that actually is great, because that allows us to note for sure that this cell is yellow, given it can't be blue. And now again, we can't make that go that way, because that will be a corner and create the 2 by 2 problem. So we have to move down. Exactly the same problem happens there. And now that cell cannot be loop, or it's stranded, so that must be green, which means this square is high polarity and is 7, 8 or 9. All seems to be possible. This cell cannot be yellow, or we're going to have a 2 by 2 of yellow there. In other words, it's green. That cell cannot be anything other than green, or we've got a problem with the loop going in and not being able to get out. So the loop now has to come down there. Don't quite know whether it does that now or this, but it does one of those things. And we can do some polarity. That cell's got to be a low digit. It's not 1 or 2, so it's 3 or 4. And it can't be 4 because it would be surrounded on both sides by 9. So that's 3, that's 1. This cannot now be next to 7. This must be an 8, 9 pair, either side of the 3, which makes this a 6, which is lovely, because now this square cannot be green, because it would be 1 again. So that square becomes yellow, which tells us how the loop closes, which means all of this has to be blue. That's got to be yellow to avoid a 2 by 2, therefore that's got to be blue to avoid a 2 by 2, and that is everything. That's the loop. We've done the loop, we've just got to do the whispers and a bit of Sudoku, I think. That cell can't be 5 because it's part of a whispers line leading up to this digit. That square is now not 3. And if it was 4, they would be double 9. And there must be a reason that doesn't work, but I can't see what it is. 2 has got to be in one of those 2 squares in box 7. So 2 is in one of these 2 squares in box number. This box up here. Oh, 2, where's... Yeah, that being 1 has placed a 2 up here, so that becomes a 2. Which is interesting, but not interesting enough. 2 lives in one of 2 cells in box 6. We've got to work out the polarity of these bluenesses now. This is going to be 2 low digits and 2 high digits, isn't it? And if we could work out where this 2 went, we would be happy. We would know what's going on then. That digit's quite tricky. It can't be 8 or 9. If it was 6 or 7, well, if it was 6, this would be a 1. That doesn't work. So if it's a high digit, it must be 7. And then that would place the 2 here. So that's one possibility. The other possibility is that it's a low digit. Now, if it's a low digit, it can't be 4 because that would put 9 here, which would clash. So it would be a 1. So that's a 1 or a 7. And this digit is a 2 or a 7 or an 8. But unfortunately, I think everything there is possible. Okay, so we have to do more Sudoku. 6's go into those squares. 3's go into one of those squares. Those squares are known, actually. Look, they've got to be a 4-7 pair by Sudoku. Why have I got a 7 there? Oh, because of the given 7, so I can do that. That's 4, that's 7. So 4 gets placed now in box number 8. 4 gets placed now in box number 7. 4 gets placed in box number 4. So now we can take 4 out of those 2 squares. And we can't quite place 4 in box 1. But we nearly could. It was nearly very exciting. 4's are in one of those cells. Right, oh, I see. That's lovely. So this cell's now become a 6 or a 7, which tells us the polarity of this little blue streak. So this square's got to now be a 1, because it can't be a 2, and yet it must be 5 different from 6 or 7. And that tells me this is brilliant. This is quite brilliant. That becoming 7 forces this to be low, and we know therefore it's got to be 2. Good grief. So this is now a high digit, which is not 6 or 7, so it's 8 or 9. Both seem possible. And that is a 3 or... No, it's not. It's got to be low. It sees 1, 2, and 4, so it's a... What is it? That's 3 in the corner. That's 3 in the spotlight, losing its religion. That can't be 3. It would be next to 1 on the whistle. Oh, this is just... Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Okay. So this digit is high, and it's not 7. So it is 6, 8, or 9. Maybe all of those things are possible. I'm sure they're not for some reason, but I can't immediately see how to resolve that. So what can we do now? We can place 1 by Sudoku here. Now we need 5 and 6 into those squares, which must be resolved. I think that's resolved somehow. I just can't see how. Whispers are not going to help us anymore, are they? Oh, there's a 7 here, so that becomes a 6. So that becomes an 8 or a 9. That becomes a 5. That becomes a 6. That becomes an 8 or a 9. So I've now got an 8-9 pair here. I can take 6 out of all of these squares. So this has to be 4, 5, or 7 by Sudoku, so that's become a 4. This becomes 5, 7, so that becomes a 4, that becomes a 4, and I think all the 4s are now done. That felt like we were sort of quorate on 4s, didn't it? How about, so we've got 5, 7, 8, 9 down at the bottom here. No, I don't like the look of looking at that. Maybe this row? 2, 7, and 5. So that's a 5 or a 7. No, okay, that was a silly thought. Sorry, I thought that might be remotely useful. Okay. All right, let's maybe have a look at this box then. 3, 5, and 9 into those squares. So 3, 5, and 9, that's not able to be 9. So there's a 9 in one of these two, which means there's a 9 in one of these two, and there's an 8, 9 pair looking at this. So that's got to be 9, which means that's become 8, that's become 9, that's become 8, that's become 8, that's become 9, that's become 9 as a result of all of those shenanigans. 3, 5 looks up here, so that becomes 3. In this column, we've not put in, and 6 and 8, I think, are the digits. I just can't see if I can do it. Okay, so they become 6 and 8. That becomes 5 or 7 and can't be 7. So that's got to be the 7. That's got to be the 5. This square is a 6 or a 9. It's not a 7, so we can get rid of the 7 in the corner there. Get rid of the 7 in the corner there. Place 7 in this box. Those two squares have got to be a 2, 5 pair. That's got to be a 6 or a 9 again. I keep coming up with 6s and 9s, which don't get resolved. How about these two squares? They are 5s and 7s. Yes, the given 7 is useful. So 7, 5, 5, 7, 5, 3. Just doing a bit of Sudoku. That digit's now a 2, which means that's a 2 and that's a 5. 5 is on the line here. 5 is on the line there. I wonder how many 5s ended up on the line. Did any? No, because we never had a single blue cell on the perimeter, so all the 5s did end up on our loop, didn't they? Okay, that's 8. Now it sees 7. So in this row we've not put 1 and 6 in. Somehow isn't resolved. These two squares have got to be 3 and 8. Again, somehow unresolved. That seems weird, but okay. That cell's a 1 by Sudoku, so that's going to do some magic, isn't it? I think that might finish it. This is a 3. That's a 3 by Sudoku. Another 3 in the corner. 2 3s in the corner. And that's 3 in the corner again. That's 8. That's 9. And if I've not made a mistake, that's 6. Looks reasonable. Oh, hang on, I've not done some stuff in the middle. 6, 8, 8, 9. I absolutely love that. It's taken me a while. I mean, there was quite a lot to do. I don't think it was dead straightforward. But what I can tell you is it is the most beautiful construction. There are so many little niceties that when you find them, you think, oh my goodness, that is really clever. And there's all of these sort of themes that underlie it. I think fives were a bit of a theme, but also the fact that the yellow line always had to sort of keep extending whenever it had the opportunity to avoid 2x2s. I'm going to click tick. It does seem to think it's right, so yay! Math Pesto, I did your puzzle and I absolutely loved it. Let me know in the comments how you got on. I do enjoy the comments, especially when they're kind, and we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.